Well, good evening, everyone. You know, it is one of my favorite seasons of the whole year. That's right, it's baseball playoff season. I'm sure many of you have been glued to your TVs with every exciting pitch. Or maybe not, I don't know. But this year, sad to say, my favorite team did not make the playoffs. See, I'm a lifelong San Francisco Giants fan, and they haven't made the playoffs for the past few years. But I get to root for my second favorite team, whoever is playing the Dodgers. I've had to root for them too often these past few years. But whenever we get to this part of the baseball season, I find myself thinking back to the very beginning, to spring training, when all of the teams come together to prepare for the upcoming season. My wife Carrie and I have gone down to Arizona for spring training several times over the years. And one of the things that we love the most about spring training is the optimism. I mean, every team has a clean slate and a fresh outlook. And every team has that same lofty goal, to win the World Series at the end of the year. And the team that wins the World Series will be recognized as the best in baseball. And they have bragging rights. The players on that team, the coaches, even their fans have bragging rights because they have attained that place of honor at the pinnacle of the baseball world. But only one team can win the World Series. And so that means that 29 other teams will fall short of that lofty goal. Now, they will have successes along the way throughout the season, but in a way, it's as if 29 teams are setting themselves up for failure every year. And in the gospel passage that we just heard, James and John, two of the apostles, have a lofty goal to have the place of honor next to Jesus in the kingdom. And they are setting themselves up for failure. I mean, Jesus basically says, you guys don't know what the heck you're talking about, right? I mean, they're really motivated by self-interest and not out of a desire for service to others. And the other 10 become indignant with them. You know, who do you think you are? I think on some level they were probably annoyed they didn't think of it first, right? You see, the problem that the apostles are struggling with is that they're stuck in an old way of thinking, an old way of viewing leadership as some sort of a dominating force. Right? But Jesus says, no, the leaders of the Gentiles lord it over them, so that their authority will be known by all. And that's not good. Right? But it wasn't only the Gentiles who did this. This was kind of the leadership style of the day. The Jewish leaders did this too. And these guys are Jewish. So this is kind of the aggressive style of leadership of which they are accustomed. And it's an aggressive style of leadership that still continues to this day. I'm sure many of us have encountered that type of my way or the highway type of leadership, right? That can be difficult to work with. But Jesus is really continuing a theme in his teaching to his disciples and to us. And it's the theme of turning that old way of thinking upside down. Because the old way of thinking is that we seek greatness through authority. But Jesus says, no. We don't find greatness in wielding authority over others. We find greatness in service to others. And I think our culture and our human nature make this a kind of a tough lesson to really learn, kind of a difficult thing to really incorporate fully into our lives. I mean, the apostles, eventually, they get it, right? But remember, they didn't know what would happen on Easter, right? But the resurrection changed everything, right? It opened their eyes, and they were able to more fully understand what Jesus has been teaching them for those years. But we don't have the same excuse, because we know what happened on Easter. We know about the resurrection. And I'm sure we can all think of examples of people who really get it, who really, truly dedicate their lives to the service of others. Mother Teresa, for example. Saint Damien of Molokai, for example. And so many other saints. But I think for most of us, it can be a struggle. I mean, our natural inclination is to look out for number one. Now, of course, I think we all probably do acts of service from time to time. I know I do. But to truly dedicate your life to the service of others in the name of the Lord, to truly live an exemplary Christian life, that's a tall order. And it's what Jesus asks us to do. And it's my lofty goal. James and John set themselves up for failure by setting that lofty goal to have the place of honor next to Jesus in the kingdom. 29 baseball teams set themselves up for failure by having that lofty goal to win the World Series at the end of the year. And I set myself up for failure, as do countless other Christians, by setting that lofty goal to live an exemplary Christian life all the time. Because if I live an exemplary Christian life all the time, that means I am 100% committed to service 100% of the time. And as much as I would like to say that I am, I'm not. And to live an exemplary Christian life all the time means that I would treat every person whom I encounter with love, compassion, and mercy every single day. And as much as I'd like to say that I do, I don't. And to live an exemplary Christian life all the time, I must be completely selfless and never selfless and never selfish. As much as I'd like to say that I am, I'm not. And so I fail. I fail time and time again. But that is not a reason to be discouraged. That is a reason for hope. Because just like those 29 teams who fall short of their goal of winning the World Series, they have successes along the way. And I also have successes along the way. Because sometimes I do act out of service. And sometimes I get through a whole day treating pretty much everybody I meet lovingly. And sometimes I really am selfless. And when I'm not, I can turn to the Lord for mercy and forgiveness. And I can recommit to that lofty goal and start again. That's really what the Christian life is all about. It's about committing to the lofty goal of perfect service in the Lord and seeking forgiveness and mercy when we fail in that goal, and then recommitting to that goal again and again and again. And so today, as we gather as a community of faith to share this most sacred meal, the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ, let us ask the Lord for the courage and the clarity to strive toward that lofty goal of exemplary Christianity. And let us not hesitate to seek the forgiveness and mercy of Christ when we fail in that goal. And let us ask for the courage to persevere in that goal despite our shortcomings.